Unaware, she's a Taekwondo master Korean mafia boss slaps wife and mocked her with his friend. The slap echoed through the Gangnam apartment like a gunshot. And in that split second, as Min Jae's friends erupted into laughter and her cheek burned with humiliation, Eloan Edim's hands remembered what her mind had spent 2 years trying to forget. They were built for breaking things. Welcome back to my channel, where secrets never stay buried. Before the story begins, comment where you're watching from and hit subscribe, because this one will shock you. The summer heat in Seoul was the kind that made everything sticky. Skin tempers the truth. Eloan stood in the kitchen of their apartment, hands trembling slightly as she arranged the soju bottles on the tray. Through the thin wall, she could hear Min Jae and his friends settling into the living room, their voices already loud with the particular confidence of men who'd never been told no. She took a breath. Another. The breathing exercises her father had taught her 15 years ago in that Detroit dojang. Control the breath, control the fight. He used to say, back when she thought fighting was about winning trophies, not surviving marriages. The apartment was nice. Min Jae had insisted on Gangnam, because apparently even mid-level criminals had neighborhood preferences. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, all those lights twinkling like promises nobody intended to keep. The furniture was modern, expensive, sterile, like a hotel room for people who'd forgotten what home felt like. Eloan caught her reflection in the microwave's black surface. 23 years old, and she barely recognized herself. Her hair was pulled back tight, the way Min Jae preferred. No makeup. He said it looked cheap on her, though she suspected he meant something else entirely. The traditional Korean house dress she wore was his idea too, part of his fantasy of the obedient foreign wife who'd be grateful just to be here. If her friends back in Detroit could see her now. Hell, if her father could see her now. But they couldn't. Nobody could. That was kind of the point. Yobo. Min Jae's voice cut through her thoughts. We're waiting. She picked up the tray, steadied herself, and walked into the living room. 3 men sat around the low table with her husband, cards and cash scattered between them. She recognized them. Lee Sang-chul, tall and mean with a scar running down his left cheek like someone had started to unzip his face. Kim Jae-sung, shorter, rounder, with dead eyes that never seemed to blink. And the third, whose name she'd never learned, rail-thin with tattoos creeping up his neck like vines reclaiming a building. They barely glanced at her as she approached. About time, Min Jae said, not looking up from his cards. We were dying of thirst over here. Eloan knelt beside the table, began pouring. The soju flowed clear and cold, deceptively innocent. Her Korean was perfect now. 2 years of immersion and natural aptitude had seen to that, but she'd learned early that men like these preferred her silent. They spoke freely around her, assuming her compliance was ignorance. Your American pet finally learning manners, Min Jae-ah? Lee Sang-chul grinned, revealing gold-capped teeth. What is she, your maid now? Better than a maid, Min Jae replied, and something in his tone made Eloan's hands still for just a moment. Maids you have to pay. The men laughed. That particular laugh that men do when they're bonding over someone else's degradation. Eloan continued pouring. The breathing exercises weren't working anymore. I still don't understand why you married her, Kim Jae-sung said, picking up his glass. Black women, they're too much attitude, you know? Too aggressive. That's what I thought, Min Jae said, and Eloan could feel his eyes on her even though she kept her gaze down. But this one? Gentle as a lamb. Quiet. Obedient. Turns out you just have to train them right. Train them right. Like she was a dog. Like she was anything but human. Her father's voice in her head. The greatest victory is the battle not fought. He'd said that constantly, especially after Cleveland, after Tommy Morrison, after everything went wrong. He'd made her promise to never fight in anger again, to walk away, to be better than the violence. She'd kept that promise for 2 years. 2 years of walking away, of being small, of pretending the martial artist in her had died in that Cleveland basement. But promises, like patience, have expiration dates. Eloan reached for the next bottle, and her hand, just slightly, tilted wrong. Soju spilled across the table, splashing onto Min Jae's cards, his phone, the neat stack of $1 bills. The room went silent. You stupid. Min Jae was on his feet before she could blink. Do you know how much money you just— I'm sorry, Eloan said quickly, reaching for a napkin. It was an accident, an accident. His face was red, veins visible at his temples. You can't even pour drinks properly? This is the simplest thing. And you Min Jae said it's fine, Kim Jae-sung started, but Min Jae wasn't listening. This is what I deal with, he said, addressing his friends now, his voice rising. I bring her here, I give her everything, and she can't even. He grabbed Aloan's wrist, yanked her to her feet. What are you good for, huh? You don't cook Korean food properly, you don't clean properly, you walk around my home like some kind of. The slap came fast. Hard. The kind of slap that's meant to humiliate more than hurt, performed for an audience of 3 men who'd probably done worse to their own women. Aloan's head snapped to the side. Her cheek exploded in heat. The living room tilted slightly, or maybe that was just her sense of reality finally giving up. The men laughed. Actually laughed. Maybe you need a Korean wife next time, Lee Sang-chul said. Someone who knows how things work here. Maybe I do, Min Jae agreed. And there was something in his voice, satisfaction, cruelty, the pleasure of having successfully diminished another human being in front of his peers. He raised his hand again, and Aloan's muscle memory, dormant for 24 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days, finally woke up. Her hand shot up, caught his wrist mid-swing. The grip was iron, unbreakable, the kind of grip that comes from a decade of conditioning, of training, of learning exactly how much pressure the human body can take before things start breaking. Min Jae's eyes went wide. The laughter died. In the sudden silence of that Gangnam apartment, with Seoul's lights twinkling outside like uncaring stars, for men who trafficked in violence finally understood what it felt like to be prey. Aloan looked at her husband, really looked at him, for the first time in months. And when she spoke, her voice was quiet, calm, and absolutely devoid of fear. Don't. The thing about catching someone's wrist mid-slap is that it creates a very specific kind of awkward silence. The kind where everyone's brain is trying to reconcile what just happened with what they thought they knew about reality. Like watching a golden retriever suddenly speak French. Min Jae's face cycled through several emotions in rapid succession. Shock, confusion, anger, and then, most interesting, a flicker of fear. His wrist was still locked in Aloan's grip, and he was pulling, actually straining, but her hand wasn't budging. It was like watching someone try to move a lamppost. Let go, he said, his voice tight. Say please, Aloan replied, and she wasn't sure who was more surprised by that, her or him. Lee Sang-chul half stood, his chair scraping against the floor. Yeah, you can't. Aloan's eyes cut to him, just looked at him, didn't say a word. Lee Sang-chul sat back down so fast he nearly missed the chair entirely. Kim Jae-sung suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. The tattooed one was trying to disappear into the couch cushions. I said let go. Min Jae tried to sound commanding, but his voice cracked slightly. He pulled harder. Aloan's arm didn't even tremble. 2 years of teaching English to middle schoolers had given Aloan an excellent poker face. She'd perfected the art of looking calm while internally screaming during grammar lessons. That skill was coming in handy now, because inside her head was absolute chaos. Her brain was having a full-on civil war between finally and oh God, what are you doing? Interesting, she said, releasing his wrist suddenly. Min Jae stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the table. You know, in America, when someone spills something by accident, we usually just say it's okay and grab a towel. We don't, she gestured vaguely at her still-burning cheek. Assault our spouses. Assault. Min Jae's voice went up an octave. He was rubbing his wrist, and Aloan could see the red marks where her fingers had been. You grabbed me. These men are witnesses. Witnesses to what? You trying to hit me again? Yeah, they definitely witnessed that. Aloan crossed her arms. Great witnesses, too. Really upstanding citizens, I'm sure. You want to call the police? Let's call them. I'd love to explain to the nice officers what kind of import-export business keeps you out until 4 a.m. on Tuesdays. The color drained from Min Jae's face. Lee Sang-chul cleared his throat loudly. Maybe everyone should calm down, Kim Jae-sung offered, his voice careful. He was looking at Aloan differently now, like she was a math problem he couldn't solve. Too much soju, emotions running high. I haven't had any soju, Aloan pointed out. I'm stone cold sober. Super clear-headed. Crystal clear, actually. Clearer than I've been in months. It was true. Something had shifted in her, like a lock finally clicking open. Or maybe breaking. She wasn't sure which, and right now, she didn't particularly care. Min Jae was trying to reassemble his authority. He straightened his shirt, ran a hand through his hair. "You're crazy," he said, but there was no conviction in it. "I married a crazy woman." "You married a Taekwondo master," Eloan corrected. "Fourth degree black belt. But sure, let's go with crazy. That's definitely the concerning part of this situation." The room went silent again. A different kind of silent. The kind where you can hear the air conditioning and someone's stomach gurgling and the slow dissolution of someone's entire worldview. "You're what?" Min Jae's voice was barely a whisper. "Taekwondo master. You know, Korea's national sport? Thought you'd appreciate the cultural connection." Eloan started gathering the spilled bottles, her movements casual. "I assumed you knew. I mean, you married me. Didn't you ask questions? Do any research? Or did you just see foreign woman with visa problems and think, perfect target?" Lee Sang-chul was standing now, hands raised like he was trying to calm a wild animal. "Listen, we should all just sit down," Sang-chul says. Eloan didn't even look at him. "You're not involved in this. This is between me and my husband." She said, husband, the way other people might say root canal or tax audit. He sat. Kim Jae-sung leaned over to the tattooed one and whispered something in Korean. The tattooed one whispered back. They were speaking too quietly for Min Jae to hear, but Eloan's Korean was excellent. "Did you see how fast she moved? Like a snake. I didn't even see it. I heard about a black American woman in Itaewon who put 3 guys in the hospital last year. That was her. No, but maybe there's 2 of them. Maybe they're multiplying." Eloan almost smiled at that. The idea that America was just exporting dangerous black women to Korea like some kind of martial arts exchange program. Min Jae was pacing now, his hands shaking. He kept opening his mouth to speak, then closing it. "Finally, you've been lying to me. This whole time, I've been surviving you," Eloan corrected. "There's a difference. Also, you lied first. Import-export? Really? You're a gangster, Min Jae. A bad one, but still. So let's not talk about honesty. I could have you deported. You could try. But then you'd have to explain to immigration why your wife of 6 months is leaving. They ask questions about that. Lots of questions. Especially when there's evidence of domestic violence." She touched her cheek. Still burning. Definitely going to bruise. Min Jae's friends were gathering their things. Cards, money, dignity, whatever they could salvage. Lee Sang-chul was already at the door. "We'll catch up later, Min Jae, he said quickly. "Family matters, you know. Private." They fled. Actually fled. 3 grown men who probably had weapons and certainly had criminal records, running from a 23-year-old English teacher in a house dress. And then it was just Eloan and Min Jae, standing in their expensive apartment with its expensive view, surrounded by spilled soju and broken illusions. "So," Eloan said conversationally, "want to talk about this like adults? Or should I start packing? Where in the map are you watching from?" Min Jae stood frozen in the middle of the living room, looking like a man who'd just discovered his pet hamster was actually a wolverine. His mouth opened and closed several times, producing no sound. Eloan had seen her middle school students make the same expression when she asked them to explain present perfect continuous tense. "You can't just," he finally managed. Can't just what? Defend myself? Stop you from hitting me again? Use complete sentences." Eloan started wiping the soju off the table with deliberate calm. "You're going to need to be more specific, Min Jae. This is my house. Actually, it's a rental. Your name and mine are both on the lease." I checked. She had checked about 3 months ago during one of her planning exit strategies while pretending everything is fine phases. "But please, continue yelling about property rights. That's definitely the issue here." Min Jae ran both hands through his hair, a gesture she'd once found attractive back when she'd been young and stupid and thought import-export was a real job description. "You don't understand what you've done. Those men, they'll talk. Everyone will know I can't control my own wife." Control. Eloan stopped wiping and looked at him. Really looked at him. "That's an interesting word choice. Not my wife stood up for herself, or I made a mistake. Just control. That's not what You're twisting my words. I'm translating them. From asshole to English. I'm very good at languages." His face flushed red. "You think you're so smart? So tough? You have no idea what kind of world I'm in. what these men are capable of. Let me guess, Eloan said, sitting down on the couch with the calm of someone who'd recently discovered she no longer gave a damn. They'll threaten me, maybe rough me up a little, send some guys to scare the foreign girl. Is that about right? Min Jae's silence was confirmation enough. Here's the thing, Min JSSI. She leaned back, crossed her legs. I grew up in Detroit. East Side. You know what happens there? People get shot going to the grocery store. My high school had metal detectors and a police officer who looked tired in a way that suggested he'd seen things. I was 8 years old the first time I heard gunshots. 8. By the time I was 12, I could identify the caliber by sound. She watched his expression shift from anger to confusion. And the martial arts? That wasn't a hobby. That was survival. My dad didn't teach me Taekwondo because he thought it would look good on college applications. He taught me because in our neighborhood, a young black girl needed to know how to handle herself. So I learned. And I got good. Really good. Eloan stood up, moved to the window. Soul stretched out below. All those lights and lives and stories. Then I got too good. Started fighting for money. Underground stuff because legitimate competitions don't pay for rent and groceries. And one night, I nearly killed a man. Would have killed him if the ambulance hadn't been close. He said something racist, I saw red, and my body just reacted. She turned back to Min Jae. He was listening now, really listening, probably for the first time since they'd met. I came here to escape that, to be someone different, someone peaceful. I thought if I could just be smaller, quieter, softer, I could bury that version of myself. The violent one, the dangerous one. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. And then I married you. Eloan, I let you yell at me, degrade me, treat me like I was stupid or helpless or both. And you know why? Because I thought I deserved it. Penance, for what I did back home. I thought if I could just endure enough, suffer enough, I'd be absolved. She walked toward him slowly. Min Jae took a step back. But tonight, when you raise your hand to hit me again, in front of your criminal friends, laughing about training me, right like I'm some kind of animal, something in me just broke. Or maybe it unbared itself. I'm not sure which. I didn't mean yes, you did. You meant every word, every look, every casual cruelty. Eloan stopped a few feet away from him. And here's what's going to happen now. I'm going to pack a bag. I'm going to leave. And you're going to let me, because if you don't, if you try to stop me or send your discount gangster friends after me, I will defend myself. And Min Jae, you don't want that. You're threatening me? In my own home. I'm promising you. There's a difference. She moved past him toward the bedroom. Oh, and Min Jae, if you think people like Lee Sang-chul won't respect you because your wife stood up to you, wait until they hear you got dropped by a 23-year-old English teacher. In a house dress. That's the story that'll spread. She could hear his breathing behind her, heavy and fast. Angry, but also scared. Good. You should be scared. You have nowhere to go, he called after her. No money. No friends here. Eloan paused at the bedroom door. I survived Detroit. I survived underground fight clubs. I survived you. I'll figure it out. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, her hands finally shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by the cold reality of what she'd just done. She had no plan, no safety net, just a cell phone with 17% battery and a resolve that was either courage or stupidity. Probably both. From the living room, she heard glass shatter. Min Jae taking his frustration out on something that couldn't fight back. Story of his life, really. Hooked, right? Don't forget to subscribe and state where you're watching from. Eloan shoved clothes into her duffel bag with the kind of precision that comes from having practiced exit strategies in her head for months. Underwear, 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, her passport. The essentials of running away from your criminal husband at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Her phone buzzed. A text from her friend Juwon, one of the other English teachers at her school. Karaoke Friday? We're doing girls' night. Eloan stared at the message. In what universe could she explain that she couldn't make karaoke because she'd just caught her mafia husband's hand mid-slap and was currently fleeing her marriage? Ji-won thought Min Jae worked in finance. Everyone did. Eloan had been an excellent liar by omission. She typed back, "Can I crash at your place tonight?" 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. Everything okay? Define okay. I'll explain in person. Please. Address coming. Doors unlocked. I'm at my mom's, but heading back soon. Eloan felt her chest tighten with something that might have been gratitude or might have been the beginning of a panic attack. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. She grabbed her phone charger, her laptop, the small photo of her father she kept hidden in her nightstand. He was standing in front of the dojang, arms crossed. That expression he always had, proud but worried, like he knew she was destined for either greatness or disaster and wasn't sure which would come first. "I'm sorry, Dad," she whispered to the photo. "I tried. I really tried to be peaceful." From the living room came another crash, followed by creative Korean cursing. Min Jae was having what her students would call a moment. Adults called it a tantrum, but somehow that seemed less impressive when you were 27 and supposed to be a gangster. Eloan zipped the bag, took one last look around the bedroom. 6 months of her life in this space. 6 months of pretending she was someone she wasn't. The room suddenly felt like a museum exhibit. Here we see the habitat of a woman who forgot who she was. She opened the door. Min Jae was sitting on the couch now, head in his hands. The coffee table was on its side, glass from the broken soju bottles scattered across the floor like dangerous confetti. "I should clean that up," Eloan said, mostly to herself. "Don't." Min Jae's voice was muffled. "Just don't." She stood there, duffel bag over her shoulder, and for a moment, just a brief, stupid moment, she almost felt sorry for him. He looked small, defeated, human. Then she remembered the slap, the laughter. Train them right. The moment passed. "I'll come back for the rest of my stuff next week," she said. "When you're not here." He looked up. His eyes were red, but she couldn't tell if it was from anger or crying or both. "This is really happening." "Yeah, because I slapped you. Once." Eloan laughed, a sharp sound that surprised them both. "No, Min Jae, not because you slapped me once. Because you slapped me once in front of your friends for their entertainment. Because you've been verbally abusing me for months. Because you lied about who you are. Because you see me as property. Because," she stopped, took a breath. "You know what? I don't owe you an explanation. I'm leaving. That's enough. My Hyung Nim won't like this." His voice was quiet but carried a threat. "He doesn't like complications. Your boss." Eloan adjusted her bag. "Tell him your wife left you. Happens all the time. You'll survive. He'll want to know why. Tell him I was homesick. Tell him I met someone else. Tell him the truth, that you hit me and I refuse to take it. Whatever helps you sleep at night." She moved toward the door. "But Min Jae, if anyone from your organization comes looking for me, if anyone threatens me or tries to intimidate me, I will not be peaceful about it. And unlike you, I don't need 3 friends watching to win a fight." She was at the door now, hand on the handle. Freedom was literally a doorknob turned away. "Eloan." She paused but didn't turn around. "I loved you. In the beginning." "No," she said softly. "You love the idea of me. The foreign wife. The exotic prize. The woman who would be grateful enough to overlook everything else." She opened the door. "You never knew me at all." The hallway was empty, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Eloan stepped out. Let the door close behind her with a soft click that sounded like punctuation. Period. End of sentence. End of chapter. Her phone buzzed again. Ji1. Address. 243 Dal Macaro, Mapo-gu. 4th floor, apartment 402. There's leftover chicken in the fridge. Beer in the door. Mikasa e sukasa, babe. Eloan pulled up the map. 43 minutes by subway. She could do 43 minutes. She'd done harder things. The elevator dinged. She stepped in, pressed the ground floor button, and watched the numbers descend. 5th floor, 4th, 3rd. Each number was distance from her old life, however small. When the doors opened to the lobby, she walked out into the Seoul night. The humidity hit her like a wall, but the air tasted like freedom. Or maybe that was just the fried chicken smell from the restaurant across the street. Either way, she'd take it. She started walking toward the subway station, her phone's GPS guiding her through streets she'd walked 100 times, but somehow looked different now. Everything looked different now. Behind her, in apartment 1504, Min Jae sat in the wreckage of his living room and his marriage, trying to figure out how to explain to his boss that his wife wasn't just gone. She was dangerous. And in that moment, Eloan at him smiled. Actually smiled. For the first time in 6 months. Ji1's apartment was exactly what Eloan needed. Small, cluttered, and blissfully devoid of men who thought assault was a reasonable response to spilled alcohol. The walls were covered in K-pop posters, photos from teaching conferences, and a truly impressive collection of coffee shop loyalty cards pinned up like trophies. So, G1 said, handing Alone a beer and settling onto the floor cushion across from her. You want to tell me why you showed up at midnight with a duffel bag and a face that says I either committed a crime or prevented one? Aloan took a long drink. Min Jae hit me tonight. The apartment went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and someone's TV in a unit above, playing what sounded like a historical drama at full volume. Ji-won's expression cycled through shock, rage, and then something that looked suspiciously like satisfaction. Finally, 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 you're leaving him. Girl, I've been waiting for this moment for 4 months. Ji-won leaned forward. We all knew something was wrong. The way you'd flinch when your phone rang. How you stopped coming to dinners. That dead look in your eyes during lunch breaks. We were taking bets on when you'd snap. You were betting on my marriage, betting on your freedom. Different thing. Ji-won grabbed her own beer. So what happened? Did you call the police? Please tell me you documented it. I caught his hand mid-slap. You what? He tried to hit me again. I caught his wrist. Didn't let go. Aloan demonstrated with her own wrist. He couldn't break free. His gangster friends literally ran out of the apartment. Ji-won's mouth fell open. Then she started laughing. Actually laughing, the kind that comes from your stomach and won't stop. Oh my God. Oh my God. You're telling me Min Jae, Mr. I'm set up for designer suits to intimidate people, got overpowered by his wife in front of his crew. Basically, that's, Ji-won wiped her eyes. That's the best thing I've heard all year. Wait, how? You teach English and do yoga on weekends. How are you secretly She-Hulk? Aloan set down her beer. I have a black belt in Taekwondo, 4th degree. I used to fight semi-professionally back in the States. Ji-won blinked. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? You told me you did recreational martial arts as a kid. That's like saying the ocean is somewhat damp. Ji-won stared at her like she was seeing a stranger. 4th degree? That's master level. You can't just casually mention that. I was trying to leave that life behind. Why? Aloan told her about Detroit, about Tommy Morrison, about the underground fights, and the moment when skill became violence became nearly murder. Ji-won listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from amusement to understanding. So you came here to hide, Ji-won said softly when Aloan finished. I came here to heal, and met Korea's worst excuse for a gangster instead. Ji-won shook her head. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. Tell me about it. So what now? You can stay here as long as you need, obviously. But Min Jae, does he know where I live? I don't think so. I never mentioned you much. He didn't care about my friends. Aloan paused. But his organization, they're connected. If they want to find me, they will. They won't, Ji-won said firmly. You know why? Because Min Jae is an embarrassment now. His wife publicly humiliated him. Trust me, Korean gang culture, pride is everything. He's going to try to bury this story, not amplify it by chasing you down. You seem to know a lot about gang culture. My uncle was Yakuza Jason in Japan before he got smart and opened a restaurant. Ji-won shrugged. Family dinners were educational. Point is, Min Jae's more likely to pretend you never existed than admit what happened. Aloan's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Your husband is very upset. Perhaps we should talk. Lee Sang-chul. She showed Ji-won the screen. That's one of his friends from tonight. The one with the scar. Ji-won grabbed the phone, started typing. What are you handling it? Ji-won's thumbs flew across the keyboard. She hit send, handed the phone back. Aloan read the message. Tell Min Jae if he can't handle his own marriage problems, he should try therapy, not intimidation. Also, Sang-chul SSI, your boss would be interested to know about the skimming you've been doing from the Hongdae collections. What do you know about that? I don't. But these guys always skim. And now he thinks you know something. Ji-won grinned. They won't bother you. They'll be too busy worrying about what else you know. The phone buzzed again. Sang-chul, message received. We have no further business. See, Ji-won clinked her beer against Aloan's. Sometimes the best defense is making them think you've got ammunition. Aloan stared at her friend. This tiny Korean woman who taught grammar to teenagers and apparently moonlighted as a strategic genius. You're terrifying. I'm practical. There's a difference. Ji-won stood up, stretched. Now, you're sleeping on the couch because my bedroom is a disaster zone. Tomorrow, we're getting you a new phone number, changing your social media privacy settings, and maybe buying pepper spray. Just in case. Ji-won, yeah. Thank you. Please. You caught a grown man's hand mid-slap like you were catching a baseball. I should be thanking you for the entertainment. She headed toward her bedroom, then paused. Hey, Eloan, I'm proud of you. For leaving. For fighting back. For remembering who you are. After Jawan disappeared into her room, Eloan sat in the quiet apartment, beer in hand, and let herself feel it. The fear, the relief, the strange exhilaration of having finally stopped running from herself. Her phone buzzed one more time. Min Jae, this isn't over. Eloan typed back. Yes, it is. And if you can't accept that, I'll be happy to demonstrate why in person. Your choice. She blocked his number, finished her beer, and lay down on G1's couch that smelled like lavender fabric softener and possibility. For the first time in 6 months, Eloan Edem slept through the night without nightmares. Morning came with the smell of coffee and the sound of G1 singing aggressively off-key to a girl group song while making breakfast. Eloan opened her eyes to find a blanket draped over her that hadn't been there when she fell asleep and a small note on the coffee table. Went out for croissants. Back in 10. Don't answer the door. JW. Eloan sat up, her neck protesting from the couch angle. Her phone showed 6 missed calls from Min Jae's number, which she blocked, and 3 from numbers she didn't recognize. No voicemails. Cowards never left evidence. She scrolled through her messages instead. One from her father, sent 8 hours ago. Haven't heard from you in a week. Everything okay, sweetheart? Guilt twisted in her stomach. She'd been avoiding his calls, afraid he'd hear the truth in her voice. Her father had radar for when she was struggling. It was both comforting and inconvenient. She typed, Everything's fine, Dad. Just busy with work. I'll call this weekend. Promise. The lie tasted bitter even through text message. G1 burst through the door, carrying a bag of croissants and 2 iced Americanos. Her energy completely inappropriate for 7 a.m. Good, you're up. We have planning to do. Planning. Your exit strategy. Job security, visa status, living situation, safety protocols. Ji-won dropped the bag on the table and started counting on her fingers. Your 2 visa is tied to your teaching job, right? Not to Min Jae. Right. We got married after I was already working. The visa is independent. Good. That's one less complication. Your contract at Seoul International Academy runs until February. 7 more months. Perfect. That gives us time. Ji-won handed her a coffee. Now, the apartment situation. You obviously can't go back there. I know. All my stuff is there. My books, my winter clothes, my allowance stopped. My father's martial arts trophies. I brought them from Detroit. They're in the closet. We'll get them, but strategically, when Min Jae isn't home. Ji-won pulled out her phone. I have a friend who works at a security company. Big guy. Looks like he eats protein powder for breakfast. We'll bring him as insurance. Ji-won, I can't handle, I know you can. That's not the point. The point is witnesses. If something happens and there's a third party present, it's documented. It's legitimate. It's protection for you legally. Ji-won bit into a croissant. Also, my friend owes me a favor. I set him up with his now fiancée. Eloan sipped her coffee, letting the caffeine and competence wash over her. You've really thought this through. I had all night. Insomnia is great for strategic planning. Ji-won's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. Interesting. What? Remember my uncle? The reformed Yakuza-adjacent one. Ji-won showed Eloan her screen. He knows Min Jae's organization. Says they're small time. Mid-level at best. Mostly protection rackets in Gangnam. Some loan sharking, nothing sophisticated. That's supposed to make me feel better? It means they're not powerful enough to cause real problems without drawing attention they can't afford. They operate in gray areas. Broad daylight confrontations? Police involvement? Not their style. Ji-won leaned back. My uncle says if Min Jae's boss hears about domestic violence bringing police scrutiny, he'll cut Min Jae loose faster than a bad investment. Eloan processed this. So I'm safe? Safer than you think. These guys live on reputation and fear. A woman standing up to one of them and walking away? That's embarrassing. They want this story buried, not amplified. Unless Min Jae decides pride is more important than practicality, which is why we plan carefully. Ji-won pulled up a calendar on her phone. Today's Wednesday. Min Jae works, or whatever he calls it. Most weekdays, right? Usually out of the apartment by 10. Usually, we go Friday morning, 10:30, in and out in 20 minutes. You grab essentials, trophies, important documents, winter coat, whatever else you can't replace. My friend will keep watch. If Min Jae shows up, we leave immediately. What if he changed the locks? Did you take your key when you left? Eloan pulled it from her bag. Yeah. Then he probably hasn't changed them yet. Men like that, they don't think ahead. They react. G1 stood up, started pacing. Listen, I know this feels overwhelming, but you've already done the hard part. You left. You stood up for yourself. This is just logistics now. Just logistics, Eloan repeated. Right? Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Eloan SSI. A man's voice, older, rough like cigarettes, and authority. My name is Choi Dae-young. I believe you know my associate, Park Min Jae. Eloan's hand tightened on the phone. G1 noticed, leaned in to listen. I don't know what Min Jae told you. He told me his wife left him. I'm calling because he's become unreliable, emotional, bad for business. A pause. I want to assure you that his personal matters are his own. You will not be contacted by anyone in my organization. I've made that very clear. Why are you telling me this? Because men who hit women are weak. I don't employ weak men. Min Jae is being reassigned. Somewhere far from Seoul. Another pause. You won't see him again, Eloan SSI. You have my word. The line went dead. Eloan and G1 stared at each other. Did his boss just fire him? Eloan whispered. I think his boss just exiled him. For you. G1's eyes were wide. That's actually kind of amazing. Or terrifying. Both. Definitely both. G1 grabbed another croissant. But hey, looks like Friday's apartment raid just got a lot safer. Eloan looked at her phone, at the unknown number, at the croissants and coffee in her friend's determined face. 6 months ago, she'd been so desperate to disappear that she'd made herself invisible. Now she was visible again. Seen. Dangerous. She wasn't sure if that was progress or just a different kind of problem. But it was hers. And that had to count for something. Friday morning arrived with unreasonable sunshine. The kind that seemed to mock the gravity of breaking into your own apartment to retrieve your dead father's martial arts trophies while your ex-gangster husband was presumably being shipped off to some Korean equivalent of Siberia. G1's friend turned out to be a man named Kong Junho, who indeed looked like he ate protein powder for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He stood 6'3" in a country where that made him a giant, with the kind of shoulders that suggested he could bench press a refrigerator if asked politely. Don't worry, he said in surprisingly gentle English as they rode the elevator to the 15th floor. I'm just here to carry things and look intimidating. G1 says you can handle the intimidating part yourself. She talks too much, Eloan muttered. She says that's why we're friends. The apartment door was locked but not changed. Small mercies. Eloan's hand trembled slightly as she slid the key in, and she hated herself for it. Fear was reasonable. But she'd moved past reasonable 3 days ago when she'd caught Min Jae's wrist and remembered who she was. The apartment was a disaster. Bottles everywhere, furniture overturned. The TV cracked like someone had thrown something at it. Min Jae's rage mapped out in broken objects and chaos. Wow, Junho said. Someone had a tantrum. Someone had a reckoning. Eloan corrected, stepping over debris. Come on, let's make this fast. They worked quickly. The trophies from the closet, 8 of them, ranging from regional championships to that one national title her father had been so proud of. Her important document from the desk drawer, passport, birth certificate, her college diploma. The winter coat, the photo albums, the small jewelry box her grandmother had given her. 20 minutes. They'd been in the apartment 20 minutes when Eloan heard the key in the lock. Min Jae stood in the doorway, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His suit was wrinkled, his hair a mess, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. He saw Eloan, saw Junho, saw the bags of her belongings. You came back, he said, and his voice cracked with something that might have been hope. For my things, Eloan replied. That's all. I've been reassigned. To Busan. Did you know that? Min Jae laughed, a broken sound. My Hyung-nim said I'm a liability. Because of you. Because I couldn't control one foreign woman. You never needed to control me. Min Jae. You needed to respect me. There's a difference. I loved you. You loved owning me. Eloan picked up the last bag. And when I stopped being owned, you had nothing left. Min Jae's hands clenched into fists. Junho shifted slightly, positioning himself between them. But Aloan shook her head. She stepped forward, looked Min Jae directly in the eyes. I came to Korea running from violence. From the person I was capable of being when pushed too far. You know what you did? You pushed me right back to her. And now I have to figure out who I am in the space between. Between the woman who almost killed a man in Cleveland and the woman who let you treat her like property for 6 months. Aloan, I hope Busan treats you better than Seoul did. I hope you learn something. I hope you become someone who doesn't measure his worth by how small he can make other people feel. She adjusted the bag on her shoulder. But honestly, I don't think you will. Men like you rarely do. She walked past him, Junho following close behind. At the door, she paused. The lease is in both our names until February. You can have it. I'll sign whatever you need to transfer it. I don't want anything from you except to never see you again. Min Jae said nothing, just stood there in his ruined apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of his choices. In the elevator, Aloan let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You okay? Junho asked. Ask me in 6 months. Outside, Jiwon was waiting by her car, bouncing on her toes like an anxious rabbit. Everything go okay? Nobody died? Nothing exploded? Everything's fine, Aloan said. Let's go home. Home meaning my apartment, or home meaning something more philosophical? Both. Either. I'll figure it out. They loaded the bags into the car. As they pulled away from the building, Aloan looked back one last time at the place that had been her prison disguised as a marriage. The sun reflected off the windows, making it impossible to see inside. Good. She was done looking back. 3 months later, Aloan stood in front of a different building in Hongdae, a small gym with Seoul Taekwondo Academy, painted on the window in both Korean and English. The owner, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and calloused hands, had offered her a position teaching advanced classes 3 evenings a week. Your credentials are impressive, Master Kim had said during the interview. But more than that, you move like someone who understands what martial arts is really for. What's it really for? Aloan had asked. Finding yourself, then defending yourself. In that order. Now, watching her first class of students bow before beginning their forms, Aloan felt something shift in her chest. Not healing, that would take longer, but maybe the beginning of it. The acknowledgement that she could be both the woman who'd nearly killed Tommy Morrison and the woman who'd walked away from Min Jae. That violence and peace weren't opposites, but existed on a spectrum she was learning to navigate. Her phone buzzed. A message from her father. Proud of you, sweetheart. Always have been. Always will be. She'd finally told him everything last week. About Min Jae, about leaving, about teaching again. He'd listened without judgment, then said simply, You remembered who you are. That's the hardest and bravest thing. Aloan pocketed her phone and clapped her hands. Again, she called to her students. This time with power. Real power. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are. They bowed and began again. And Aloan M., 23 years old, 4th-degree black belt, survivor of Detroit and Cleveland and a marriage that had tried to break her, stood in a Seoul gym and finally, felt like herself. Not the woman she'd been running from. Not the woman she'd pretended to be. Just herself. And that was enough. If you believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, hit subscribe. Only people like Min Jae won't. Comment, I stand with Aloan. If you can't stand people who think love means control. This is a story about remembering your strength when the world tries to make you forget it. Don't let anyone dim your light.